I said I was going to do this for James, but hello, Natter community. Hello. Can we have a big hello? Hello? Hey, bring that energy back up. So, great. So, what am I here to do today? I want to talk to you about 3 reasons why organizations struggle to work with their journey maps or journeys. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through 3 things, which is around kind of the misconceptions. Where's Alex? Alex, are you still there? There you go.
I ran away.
This kind of talk, it kind of is relevant for what Alex said as well today. So this will kind of like dovetails together, which is quite nice. So I'm going to talk about misconceptions around journeys. We talk about journeys, end-to-end journeys, flows, all those kinds of things. So we're going to have a little talk about that. Then I'm going to talk about the kind of the problems we have with interactions and silos, and kind of like how siloed approaches and the way we work. And then the last thing is I want to give you 3 tips around ownership. Alex talked a little bit about this as well, so it seems quite poignant. So, journeys are not being used effectively to help organizations to make informed business decisions, as we see them quite differently in organizations. And one thing I want to kind of find out from everyone is just raise your hand if you're a consultant. Okay, so we've got probably about a quarter in here. And can you raise your hand if you work in-house? Okay, so more people actually work in-house in companies rather than consultants, but this is going to be tailored to both. So, who am I? I'm Richard McMurray. I'm a service designer working at BT currently. I work in business, as we call it in BT now, and I basically design services, and I kind of like specialize in journey management and kind of omni-channel experiences. So I kind of go a level up, not just always in the digital product space. And my kind of vision is about trying to make businesses more customer-centric by helping them make more balanced decisions using customer centricity, and kind of like, I'd say as well, really trying to make those balanced and informed decisions. So let's get into misconceptions around journeys. What I want to do is tell you a little story. So just imagine John and his family have just arrived in New York, and it's about 10 o'clock at night, and they've lost their luggage. They haven't got the luggage. And they're basically got no luggage, and they go to their attendant going, okay, what's going on here? You know, what can I do? How can I get my luggage back? What's going to happen here? And John is desperately trying to find details of what's going on. He's got about 3 different boarding cards because it was transferred, it was delayed, everything. They're tired, trying to find this detail. And eventually finds those little tags, you know, the little tags that you get when you get your boarding cards. So he finds those, and luckily he's able to give that to the attendant and then give his kind of email address, his phone number, and his hotel. And they get to the hotel, and he's starting to think, well, what am I going to do? I haven't got any clothes. I haven't got any clothes for my kids or anything. And he's like, okay, I haven't really been given much information of what I can do. Can I buy clothes? I don't know. So he starts doing a little bit of searching, but it's not really that clear with his airline or the lost luggage company. So he's waiting, and he starts to go sightseeing with his family, and he decides to go and buy some clothes at a reasonable price, but he's not sure if he's going to be able to claim it back. Gets back, his luggage is in his room and it's arrived, but he never got a text message or an email from the lost luggage company, which they promised him to do. They would do that, so he kind of knew what was going on. And they have the rest of their time in New York and come back, and then he's trying to go through the claims process. Has anyone tried to do this? Going through the claims process, like trying to see if he can get some compensation for that, and it just finds it a bit too difficult, and so he just gives up. So I'm going to ask a question: what gaps in this journey did you see? What things did you see? What kind of gaps did you see between those different kind of interactions? Anyone? Yeah, like communicating what?
From the airline or the company to...
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone on this side?
I actually thought that they're making it purposely difficult.
Okay. Maybe. Anyone else? Any other kind of gaps?
Lack of automation.
You could say that, yeah. In what respect?
In terms of, okay, the flight he's been on, he's got his name and stuff, he shouldn't need them little tags and things.
Okay.
There's like different systems.
Good. All right. Anyone else on this side?
Sign post thing, so he didn't know what options he had to do it on his own, so it's very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there no other way of tracking other than tags? Maybe it was could have been a different.
Maybe that sounds like an innovation there coming through. It's a massive industry, by the way. It's a really big industry. It's lost luggage. But when you look across here, you start to see, I would say, like the journey that you do have, that John and his family went through. But a company doesn't see it that way. They don't usually see it that way. And this is where a concept I want to just introduce tonight, which is kind of levels of experience. We talked a little bit about this today. And Nielsen Norman Group have a good model looking at this, where they talk about you have an interaction level, you have a journey level, and you have a relationship level. And I keep pressing the wrong button. These multiple levels are equally important in delivering a good customer experience. And I think sometimes we focus a lot on the interaction level and the digital piece quite a lot now, but they're all really important. And I also, in service design, we usually talk about levels of zoom, which is in exactly the same kind of term, but just looking at it this way, where we're thinking about end-to-end journeys, which are kind of like the more, I would say, your relationship with a bank, for instance, might be over years, but then you have something like a journey that you're going through buying a house, for instance. That might be that kind of journey, and then you have these individual interactions that you have. And what I was kind of alluding to before is that I see there's a gap in the middle. We do a lot of concentrating in organizations where it's the interaction or the relationship level. Talk about NPS, the relationship level. Talk about getting the interaction and the kind of like the really minute touch point, or those elements there. So I just want to talk a little bit about John's story in the relationship level. These are 3 kind of relationship level experiences that he has. And when we start to look at it this way and start to think about what's going on here, we can start to kind of like take ourselves out of some of the different things like the real detail and come up to that relationship level. Then you have the journey level, which is around these kind of main journeys of checking in, boarding, flying back. But then John had these exceptions all the way through: delays, lost luggage, changes and transfers. And then when you get into the interaction level, there's going to be a lot more of touch points here and interactions, but you have all these different interactions with the airline and with the lost luggage company as well, because that's actually a subcontractor of theirs, so you have to think of it that way. But what this all kind of comes up towards is the elephant in the room, or the 3 blind people looking at the elephant and going, well, in organizations, they're all looking at things differently, and they've got their blindfolds on a lot of the time. You were talking about it before, weren't you, Alex? So it's like a lot of that kind of like, I've got to just try and do this small bit, but I can't see what the whole big picture is. So that moves me on to the next point about, we focus a lot on the interaction level. I see that quite a lot, and this creates siloed approaches and creates these experience gaps in our journeys. So where do you see gaps in the journeys that you design for? Where do who works in UX here? Anyone like see gaps in when you design things going into another channel or something like that? Everywhere. What do you see? Just what example? If you've got an example to mind.
Initial welcome email to your actual first touch point with the webflow, with the interaction. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, or status, or tracking statuses and things like that. Yeah, okay, no, yeah, I can completely relate to that. So I think John can as well. So the data kind of says that 76% of customers expect to be able to go between different channels and be able to move seamlessly through that. does everyone expect to be able to move through those journeys quite easily now? I think there's a big expectation there. But what customers say, 55% say, is that it feels like these different departments are all not talking to each other. There's elements of, well, I'm being asked for my information twice or 3 times. Why is that occurring? What's going on? They still feel disconnected. And then 8%, only 8% of companies say they've usually got their journeys linked together or their channels linked together. So it's really, it feels like there's a big gap here of like how those things happen. Zooming in a little bit into that 55% of people who think the departments feel quite disjointed, I kind of say that's because we're kind of breaking things down into different tasks and activities. And we naturally want to do that in organizations, don't we? So we can get the work, we can plan it out, we can do it. But I think that kind of, it's like breaking something up and then not rebuilding it properly. It just feels very disjointed when we don't do that. So taking John's example, you didn't get a text or an email. It's like, well, what's happening there? One department and the other department isn't talking to each other. It's like, it feels simple to us to do that, but why couldn't they tell John when he was going to get his luggage back, rather than him just getting it when it was there? They kind of fulfilled the promise, but it was kind of like the expectation wasn't quite right. A book I really, really enjoy, and if you're really into this stuff and geeking out like I am, is a book by a couple of service designers in the States called Orchestrating Experiences. It's Patrick Quattlebaum and Chris Risden. It's fascinating. It's very, very geeky, but I enjoy it. But one of the things they talk about is this idea of each channel team delivers a solution to support customer tasks with their channel only. We've got this one-to-one view of the way we design our journeys and experiences, and it's something we've got to kind of break out of. I feel we've got to kind of break out of that habit. So just another bit of an example is like, can I buy clothes? Just tell me if I can buy clothes right at the start of the journey. Just, you could have given me a leaflet. It didn't have to be something on an app or something like that. It could have just been the agent could have told me that. Moving on, I just wanted to, I'm kind of going into the last bit, which is about developing ownership or shared ownership. I want to give you 3 tips. But first, I want to ask another question, which is, who owns the journeys that you create in your business? Do you know who owns them or who's responsible for them that you design for? Who's that? You do? Yeah? You're a small business then. Is it small, or like you work for a small business, or you just, what do you do?
I'm a principal user researcher.
Oh, so, okay, that's really interesting. Okay, I'm going to have to talk to you later about that. But just overall, does other people know who owns or who's responsible, or who's the major sponsor of that? Not sponsor of the journey, because it's usually initiatives which are sponsored, but the actual owner of that journey, that customer journey. Anyone? It could be the product teams, yeah. That's sometimes more the actual, yeah, it's kind of like it can be the product, but I sometimes think there's a bit more to it than that.
I feel like it's a trick question.
Yeah,
where it's
everyone.
Like, or no one's taking responsibility for joining up those interactions.
That's a very good answer, yes. I would bet probably mostly no one. It's very disjointed. It's just, I don't think there's any kind of necessarily ownership in that sense. There'll be responsibility in certain steps or pockets, but not overall. So yeah, it was a little bit of a trick question. So my tip really is to kind of like, if you're wanting to start thinking about that, rising above the interaction points, is start to create a small working group and start small and start to kind of, you've probably done some mapping of some journeys, but start to kind of connect the dots and start to kind of look at the stakeholders of each step that you're looking at. And it goes back to Alex's point about researching and continuously looking at that and keep iterating on that and finding out what's going on. Lou Dow and Sarah Drummond are great service designers, and they have a great company called Good Services. So check them out. They're very, very good. Then the next tip is around journey roles. I was talking about journey owners, is about trying to get someone who's going to be that journey owner. There's another element of this, and this kind of leads back into Alex's piece as well, is that when we're creating these journeys and journey maps, they're going to have to be continuously iterated and done. If we're going into a continuous discovery kind of way of thinking, there's going to have to be someone, like an ambassador, who's keeping those things up to date. There are software packages and things that are coming on the market around that now, but it's something that's coming. Tip 2, developing buy-in over the long term. These things around journeys and developing that is something over the long term. So I think it's probably a lot of people have probably seen the power interest kind of like 2x2 and developing those stakeholder relationships and developing your communication around these. And that builds trust with this. The third tip I had was about companies are already starting to do this. Airbnb is a really clear example of starting to use their journeys as their strategic decision-making tool. I'm kind of leading this a little bit more to probably another talk, but it's really about companies are already starting to think in journeys and kind of like looking at how they fit those things together now. So look at different companies. Lots of, a few banks I know are doing it. There are the telcos who are doing it. Other insurers are doing it as well. So my point really is about journeys are not being used effectively by organisations to be more to create kind of more informed business decisions. The question I have as well is how many people here have done journey maps and have done that? Okay, how many of them have been really implemented, or have they kind of fallen by the as one or two? But it sometimes gets changed with the way the organisation does things, everything like that. So I kind of see that they don't quite inform the business decision clearly enough. So just kind of starting to wrap up kind of like next steps. Just see in the teams that you're working with how they're talking differently about these different levels. Some people talk about the relationship, some people talk a little bit about the journey, but most people I think will talk about the interactions. What's happening here? What's that touch point? How are we doing that? So look out for that and start to maybe think about going up a level. So I just wanted to, the kind of like last thought I had around this was start to create alignment between your kind of like the interaction journey and relationship levels with your team. Because I think for you as design leaders and junior designers and apprentices here, creating those omnichannel experiences or digital tools or features, if you can create that alignment within your teams there, and that unlocks better decision making. And we talked about it here before about making more business impact. These kinds of things will help you. So if you want to follow me, I'm on LinkedIn. BT is hiring designers as well. So if you want to come to talk to me, we are hiring. We're growing quite a bit, and I'm doing a little bit on This is HCD around journey management as well. So if you want to come and talk to me, thank you.